Welcome back now to our lead story, and apologies, we've had some technical difficulties in bringing this story to you. But tonight we can reveal dramatic new information about John Key's share market dealings.
Challenged by One News, the former merchant banker who wants to be Prime Minister was forced to make an embarrassing admission about how many Tranz Rail shares he owned. For the first time, Mr Keys admitted he owned a great deal more than he'd previously revealed. And critically, the national leader owned those shares while he was pushing for another firm to buy into Tranz Rail. Deputy Political Editor Francesca Mold's been investigating this exclusive story and joins us now live with the details. Fran.
Good evening. Well, if you remember a couple of months back, we discovered that John Key's family trust owned 30,000 shares in Tranz Rail. Now, the government attacked him for that at the time, saying it was inappropriate for him to be a shareholder when he was openly criticising the government's plan to buy that company. Well, in a surprise twist, a Labour Party researcher has uncovered more documents showing that family trust owned many more shares than has previously been admitted, and shares were even bought and sold in John Key's own name. Now, here's how the trading saga played out. The share register shows that on February the 15th, 2002, a trust owned by John Key and his wife Brona buys 30,000 Tranz Rail shares, estimated to cost around $108,000. 4 days later, on the 19th of February, the trust buys another 20,000 shares worth around $72,000. These are shares we were never told about. In July 2002, John Key is elected to Parliament and over the next few months becomes National's Associate Transport Spokesman. He questions Michael Cullen in writing and in the House about so-called secret meetings between the government and Tranz Rail, but he fails to reveal his shareholding. Then on May the 7th, 2003, John Key buys another 50,000 shares, this time under his own name, for an estimated $22,500. A couple of weeks later, he meets with Rail America, which is considering a bid for Tranz Rail. In his newsletter, John Key writes, "I hope the interest shown by Rail America will be picked up by others." He still doesn't admit he's a shareholder. On June 10, John Key sells his personal parcel of 50,000 shares for about $51,000, doubling his profit in just 5 weeks. A day later, John Key intensely questions Michael Cullen about the Tranz Rail deal at a select committee. At that hearing, Richard Prebble declares his own conflict as a director and shareholder of Mainfreight. John Key says nothing. 2 days later, his family trust sells its shares, this time at a loss, recouping $48,000 of their original $180,000 investment. On June 18, Mr Key attacks the government over its plan to buy the rail tracks.
Fran, I'm sure you've put these revelations to John Key. What's his response been?
Well, essentially, John Key's never owned up to those extra shares, despite a number of interviews with journalists about the issue. But that changed today when I caught up with him on the campaign trail. Now, I can tell you I've known him a number of years and he's always been very affable and friendly. But today he looked extremely uncomfortable and unsettled when confronted with the evidence.